I want to take a few minutes and welcome you guys all to week number 2. And I decided this week I would go ahead and give my announcement in this format. Specifically because I want to make sure that this week, as you read through chapters 3 and chapters 4, you have and walk away with a good idea of what the concepts of actus reus and mens rea are. And those are two key building blocks upon which the rest of the course will be built, so that in a handful of weeks when we start talking about specific types of crimes such as homicide or property crimes, you'll be able to apply and see where actus reus and mens rea comes into play. Okay? But before I begin that, I just want to compliment you guys on last week's discussion threads. You guys did a great job. You addressed the key principles associated with criminal punishment, and I thought your dialogue was outstanding. So continue along that track for the next several weeks, and we will be good. All right? As always, though, if you have any questions about anything, you know you can always reach out and contact me. All right, so the two key concepts I want to make sure you really understand this week are actus reus, mens rea. There's a third one called strict liability. It's pretty simple, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time highlighting that, but as you read through the textbook, make sure you take a look at strict liability type offenses. Okay? So in order for a crime to occur, as you see here, the simple formula is act plus intent equals a crime. So if you have some type of criminal act and some type of criminal intent, then you have a specific crime. If one of these is missing, you don't have a crime. You have something else, but it's not against the law. All right, so that's why it's important for you to understand these two key concepts. And I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail here. I just want you to understand that as you read through the textbook, pay attention, read the cases that are summarized in the textbook. That'll give you a good idea of actus reus, mens rea, what it is, what it isn't. All right. So actus reus simply means criminal act. It's the act of doing something. Right. So that's the little act down here. And it serves several purposes in criminal law. First of all, it helps prove intent. All right. So your act is going to help establish your criminal intent. So, for example, burglary requires a specific intent to enter a building or a structure with the intent to commit a felony or a theft. So if you're caught in the middle of the night trying to pry open a window to a closed business, that act itself will lend some credence to the crime of attempted burglary. In other words, it's going to go towards helping to prove your intent. Your intent was not to open the window to let fresh air in. Your intent was to open the window so you can crawl in and commit a theft. All right, so that's how actus reus comes into play in that area. It reserves the harsh sanction of criminal law for cases of actual danger. So, for example, the act of throwing a rock. If I throw a rock and it breaks your window, that is often going to be considered a misdemeanor. All right? The harm committed by that act is relatively small. However, if I take that same rock and I throw it and strike you in the head, the act of me throwing the rock with the intent to cause great bodily injury obviously presents a greater social danger. And so that act is going to be punished more seriously than the act of throwing a rock through a window. Right? And finally, actus reus, it helps protect the privacy of individuals. In other words, we punish people for one's conduct and not one's status. And this applies in the area, for example, if I'm addicted to drugs. I'm a drug addict. We don't punish people for being a drug addict. You can punish people for being under the influence of drugs or being drunk in public or high on drugs in public. Those are totally separate statutes. But just the mere fact that you're a drug addict or an alcoholic cannot be punished. So that's another way in which we can review this concept of actus reus. The other thing about actus reus is only voluntary acts qualify as criminal actus reus. What does that mean? That means that in order to qualify as criminal acts, you have to do something on purpose, all right? So let's say, for example, you and I get in an argument. I don't like you. I reach back with my hand and I punch you in the face and I break your nose. There's a clear-cut act of a battery, all right? I knew what I was doing. I decided I was going to hit you. I didn't like you, and the result was a broken nose. That's different than if I suffer from some type of medical condition where I have seizures and my hands go flailing all over the place and I strike you in the nose and subsequently I break your nose, all right? So as we get going into this, you'll find that voluntary acts are what qualify as an actus reus. Involuntary acts do not. You'll also find that there are certain times when the law requires you to do something. So pay attention to that so you'll have a good idea, because sometimes your failure to do something can result in you being punished. And so try to understand how that applies with the concept of actus reus. Secondly, mens rea is a mental attitude or state or criminal intent. As you will learn this week, it's a very complex and at times can be very confusing. So as you prepare your studies this week, make sure you fully understand the following concepts which will help you better understand mens rea. That is general intent crimes, specific intent crimes, and the legal concept of strict liability. Each of these general intent, specific intent, and strict liability go towards your frame of mind, so to speak, your criminal intent. What was your intentions? And that becomes very important as we begin to talk about crimes such as homicide or crimes of property, burglary versus theft versus embezzlement, those type of things, all right? The simple formula, it's very simple, probably needs to go into a little bit more detail, but very simple. Act plus intent equals a crime. So that's a very simple formula. If one of these is missing, you don't have a crime. Last thing I want you to do is watch the two videos I've attached. I think you'll find them to be extremely beneficial, very helpful as you begin to work on these two key concepts. And as always, if you have any questions about anything, please don't hesitate to contact me, all right? Have a good week. And again, if you need anything, please let me know.